السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أهلا بكم أعزائي الطلبة في lecture 2 of hematology. In this lecture, resistance of the body to the infection, leukocytes, granulocytes, monocyte macrophage system and inflammation. نحاول نلقي الضوء على أغلب الانفورميشن المتعلقة بهذه التايتلز. Resistance of the body to infection. Our bodies have a special system for combating different infectious and toxic agents. This is comprised of blood leukocytes or white blood cells and tissue cells derived from leukocytes. عندي leukocytes two types. type موجود بالبلد و type موجود بالtissue. هو أصلا derived from leukocytes of blood. What types prevent disease by actually destroyed invading bacteria or virus by phagocytosis directly، يعني راح يسوي attack to the foreign body، تحاول destroy the foreign bodies by phagocytosis or by forming antibodies and sensitized lymphocytes by indirect way. One or both of the way of which may destroy or inactivate the invader. أحاول as possible destroy the foreign body، وإذا جابت الذات هذا غير ممكن فقدر الإمكان تسوي له inactivation. Leukocytes or white blood cells هي mobile units of the body protective system. إذن هي الوحدة القابلة للحركة الوحيدة بالجهاز الدفاع عن الجسم. Formed partially from in bone marrow. السيلز اللي تكون منشأة بالبون marrow هي granulocyte والمونوسايت with a few lymphocytes. ما بقي من الليمفوسايت formed in lymphoid tissues. Lymphocyte and plasma cell. After formation, these cells transported in the blood to different parts of the body where they are needed. The real function of white blood cell is providing a rapid protein defense against infectious agents. إذن هي الfunction معناتها هي protection of the body against any foreign body ممكن entrance to the body. General characteristic of the leukocytes. We have subtypes of white blood cells. There are 6 types, include polymorphonuclear neutrophil. Polymorphonuclear mean have a nucleus. nucleus معناتها تكون not in one shape. نقول poly متعدد. Then there are more than one shape of nucleus. Polymorphonuclear neutrophil, polymorphonuclear eosinophil, polymorphonuclear basophil, monocytes, and lymphocytes. And the 6 type in little extent, or little number, few number, plasma cell. The polymorphonuclear cells all have granular appearance, for which reason they are called granulocyte. And the granules هتكون بالcytoplasm. Or in clinical terminology called body, the multiple nuclei, more than one nucleus in these cells, or nucleus with loops. For this reason, its appearance as more than one nucleus. بالحقيقة هي nucleus لكن تكون حاوية على loops, lobulated nucleus. وأحيانا these loops تكون separated, أحيانا تكون connected. Granulocytes and monocytes protect the body against invading organisms mainly by ingesting. إذن راح تعتمد على phagocytosis mechanism. Lymphocyte and plasma cell function mainly in connection with the immune system. إذن راح يكون first cell against attack the foreign body or against foreign body راح يكون هي granulocyte والmonocyte. في حال إنه هي عجزت عن مقاومة الفورين بودي أو destroyed foreign body or inactivated، راح يجي دور الاسسمنت اللي هو الليمفوسايت والبلازما سيل. يعني راح يكون بداية الفاجوسايتوسيس، بعدها راح يجي دور الميون سيستم. هذا الشيبس. البيزوفيل تكون الجرانيولز والبيزك داي تكون لارج in the cytoplasm، بحيث بتكون نيوكليوس يعني بصعوبة إنه أنت تلاحظها بالبيزوفيل بسبب enlargement of granules والdark pigment اللي هي تكون bluish or purple. النيوتروفيل واضحة، يكون السيل lobulated تشوفون more than lobes، والجرانولز تكون tiny in size، والcolors مالتها يكون pink or light purple. الليمفوسايت هي smallest of white blood cells، يعني nearest to the size of red blood cell، one nucleus non-granulated of cytoplasm. For this cause it's a granulocyte cell, such as monocyte is also a granulocyte. There is no granules in the cytoplasm, but it's the largest cell, okay, and the kidney shape of nucleus. Other type for neutrophil are also called band cell، هي mature form of neutrophil with D تمثل لي eosinophil يعني البيجمنت تكون حامضية. acidophil also called يكون الكلر مالتها red the granules وحاوية على two lobes. Concentrations of each type of white blood cells. Neutrophils about 62% of the whole or total white blood cells. Eosinophil 2.3%. Basophil 0.4%. Monocyte 5.3%. and lymphocyte 30%. ده تلاحظون أن lowest number هو البيزوفيل، يعني in 200 counting of white blood cells ممكن أحصل 1 cell of basophil normally. Okay, the largest one هي النيوتروفيل، the second lymphocyte and monocyte after lymphocyte، وما قبل الأخيرة هي الإيزينوفيل. Genesis of white blood cell such as red blood cell راح يكون starting cell هي pluripotential hematopoietic stem cell. مثل ما قلنا احنا عندنا two types في اللكتشر السابقة، هي stem cells يكون development مالتها أو differentiation راح يكون منشأها تعطيني الإريثروسايت والليوكوسايت committed erythrocyte و committed for leukocyte. الوايت blood cell then تبني stem cell be differentiation to committed stem cell that develop to RBC to major lineage white blood cell. These two major أو two lineage هي المايلوسايت lineage والليمفوسايتك lineage. Myelocyte beginning with myeloblast بعدين يسوي development to the granulocyte. lymphocyte beginning with lymphoblast. إذن هذني اللي mature form for each type of white blood cell. Granulocyte and monocyte formed only in bone marrow. Lymphocyte and plasma cell produced mainly in various lymphogenous tissues. قلنا little amount of little numbers of lymphocytes يكون بالبون مارو، لكن mainly البرودكشن يكون lymphogenous tissues أو lymphatic tissue, especially in lymph glands, spleen, thymus, tonsils, and various pockets of lymphoid tissue elsewhere of the body, any lymphoid tissue or organ in the body. White blood cells formed in the bone marrow are stored within bone marrow until they are needed in the circulatory system. Then, when they are needed, arise and various factors cause them to release from bone marrow to the blood vessels. Normally, about 3 times as many white blood cells are stored in marrow as circulated in the entire blood. This represents about 6-day supply of these cells. Lymphocytes are mostly stored with the various lymphoid tissues وكان لي يتم عندها formation for small number that are temporarily being transported in the blood. بعدين راح يتحرر to the blood when they are needed after infection from anybody. الجينيسيس توضح من stem cells وتتحول إلى cloniformic unit in the spleen ومنها يتحول إلى forming of the blast cell ومنها يتحول إلى erythrocyte erythroblast erythrocyte إلى reticulocyte sorry أو immature form بعدها تعطيني erythrocyte. الجينيسيس الآخر هو الوايت بلاد سيلز تمثل الجرانولوسايت والمونوسايت واللي تعطيني all types except lymphocyte والتايب الآخر ميجا كاريوسايت تعطيني بليتليت والليمفوسايت يكون منشأها يعني directly from stem cells إلى الكولوني الخاصة بها وتعطيني two types اللي هي التي lymphocyte والبي lymphocyte. إذا تلاحظون erythrocyte white blood cells all types except lymphocyte platelets وأخيرا two types of lymphocyte. All these comes from one cell اللي هي pluripotential hematopoietic stem cells. بعدين يصير فيها differentiation under the effect of inducers مثل ما أخذناه إحنا في اللكتشر السابق. Lifespan of the white blood cells. Granulocyte after release from bone marrow span 4 to 8 hours in the blood and maybe reach to 4 to 5 days in the tissue where they are needed. Normally with the blood يكون عمرها shorter than in the tissues. واضح؟ tissues تنتقل إذا أكو infection when they are needed severe diabetes from blood tissue from blood vessels to the infected tissues. In serious tissue infection, lifespan will be shorter to only a few hours because granulocytes process even more rapidly to the infected area, perform their infections, and in this process are themselves destroyed. بعد ما الوايت بلاد سيلز نفسها so attacking the foreign body try to destroy the foreign body, but by this process the white blood cells itself suffered from lysis or degeneration or necrosis and finally died. The lifespan might تكون shorter in the serious infection. In case of monocyte, have short transit time but is still more than the life of granulocyte. Monocyte life about 10 to 20 hours in the blood before wandering through the capillary membrane to the tissues. طبعا تنتقل التشوز by diabetes يصير بيها development to mature monocyte يعني بالبلاد فيسلز الشيب الموجود هو المونوسايت هي immature form يصير بيها maturation تتحول إلى الماكروفاج. On the tissue the cell swell and larger size to become tissue macrophages that can live for months unless they destroyed while performing phagocytic infections. هي normally موجودة حتى وإن كان there is no infection with low numbers أكو tissue macrophage. but طبعا إذا بقت راح تبقى for life span تكون long period. لكن لو كان عندي أنا infection أكيد راح يكون اللايف مالته shorter بسبب الفاجوسايتوسيس ده يستهلك الإنرجي مالتها، يستهلك عمرها finally died or destroyed by phagocytosis formation. Lymphocyte enter circulatory system continually along with the drainage of the lymph from lymph nodes and other lymphoid tissues. بما إنه هي الفورميشن يكون بالlymph tissue فراح يصير flowing بالlymph وأخيرا drainage مالته يكون blood results. After a few hours, they pass out of the blood back into the tissue by diabetes, then re-enter to the lymph and return to the blood again and again, a circle. There is a continuous circulation of lymphocytes through the body. Lymphocytes have lifespan of weeks or months. This depends on the body need for these cells. إذا تلاحظون الليمفوسايت هي في حالة movement مستمرة. Formation the lymph tissue, flowing with the lymph to the blood vessels. In the blood, inside the blood, stay a few hours and then return to the lymph tissue and again to the lymph to the blood vessels وهكذا. تستمر الحركة مالتها واللايف سبان depend on if the body needed the active of these cells, if there is any inflammation or invading by foreign body. Neutrophils and macrophages defend against the infections. Migration and chemotaxis. The first line defense mechanism in the blood هي النيوتروفيل. outside the blood هيكون التيشو ماكروفاج. أول خلايا تستجيب للإنفكشن أو الإنفلاميشن. التيشو هي التيشو ماكروفاج والبلاد هي النيوتروفيلز. Both of them attack and destroy invading bacteria, virus, or any type of foreign bodies. Neutrophils, a mature cell, can attack and destroy bacteria even in circulating blood. حتى وإن كان الانفكشن داخل blood vessels يكون active. وإن كان in the tissues راح يصير بيها diabetes get out of blood vessels to infected tissue وهناك راح يصير عند عملية attacking and destroy the foreign body. Tissue macrophage begin life as blood monocyte مثل ما قلنا هو immature form بعدين يصير بها maturation to tissue macrophage have little ability to fight infection يقصد هنا المونوسايت. Once they are entered the tissue are now called macrophage and they are extremely capable for combating intra-tissue disease agents. Neutrophil and monocytes can squeeze through the pore of blood capillaries by diabetes. White blood cell move through tissue spaces by void motion تكون حركة الأميبية. Many different chemical substances in the tissues cause both neutrophil and macrophage to move toward the source of inflammation. These factors called chemotaxis. طبعا عندنا infection أو inflammation. infected tissue راح يبدي يحرر release substances يزداد مستواها داخل البلد يستجيب لها النيوتروفيل والمونوسايت بالبلاد فيزلز الأقرب وبالتالي راح يصير بيها diabetes وأيضا تسوي stimulation other type of the same cells اللي هي النيوتروفيل والمونوسايتس، وحتى ممكن يوصل النداء إلى البون مارو في production of more and more of these cells till destroy the all foreign bodies because releasing of these chemotaxis. هذا هو الملخص. These chemotaxis include bacterial or viral toxin, degenerative products of the inflamed tissue themselves, products of the complement complex activated in inflamed tissues, with several reaction products caused by plasma clotting in the inflamed area and others. All these substances مجموعة تسوي stimulation للنيوتروفيل والمونوسايت، بالتالي both of these cells diabetes through pores of blood vessels to the tissue، وتحاول تخلص الجسم من these products سواء كان foreign body itself or التشو صار بيها degeneration from our bodies or the products of complement complex اللي راح نحكي عنها إن شاء الله بمحاضرة أخرى، وإضافة إلى products أخرى. هذه الفكرة يوضح لنا الفكرة. هذا هو source of chemotaxis، chemotaxis، ويكون استجابة بالأقرب blood vessels وهكذا، والcells هذه تحفز other type of the cells in other blood capillary and reach وصولا إلى البون marrow to production more and more of white blood cells اللي هي أصلا موجودة هناك لكن تكون latent منتظرة للstimulation أو الانفكشن حتى بها activation and maturation and releasing to the blood vessel. Most important function of neutrophil أو macrophage هي الفاجوسيتوسيس مثل ما قلنا. عملية الفاجوسيتوسيس depend especially on three selective procedures. First one, most natural structure in the tissues تكون smooth surface مالها which resists phagocytosis, but if there is a surface rough, likelihood of phagocytosis is increased. إذا أكو سؤال ينطرح، السيلز سووا phagocytosis للforeign body أو لل defective tissue of our body، لكن يكون السيل بها defect معين، ليش ما سووا phagocytosis للnormal cell؟ الأنسر يكون إنه الnormal cell أو healthy cell تكون have smooth surface، والphagocytosis تكون weak with smooth surface. Second, most dead tissues and foreign particles have no protective coats, which make them subject to phagocytosis. Conversely, natural cells have neutral substances of the body have protective proteins coat that repel phagocytosis. إذن الكوز الثاني السبب الثاني for unphagocytosis for the healthy cell of our bodies هي presence of coat, a protective coat of the natural cell، بينما السيل اللي بيها تكون abnormal أو تكون بيها defection معين، صار بيها necrosis، صار بيها degeneration، swelling or died، راح تفقد protective coat وبالنتيجة تكون معرضة للفاجوسيتوسيس. بنفس الوقت الفورين بادي ما يحتوي على هذه الكوت any type of foreign body bacteria virus parasite any type، فبالنتيجة راح يكون suspected for phagocytosis. The third one is the immune system of the body develops antibodies against infectious agents such as bacteria, thereby make the bacteria especially susceptible to phagocytosis. This selection and phagocytotic process called opsonization. واضح؟ النقاط كلش واضحة. الكوز الثالث إنه راح يكون لي antibodies against any foreign body ما متعرف عليها سابقا. Phagocytosis by neutrophil. an approach of particle to phagocytized neutrophil first attach itself to the particle أول خطوة. So attachment with the foreign body. Then project pseudobody in all directions around the particles. These pseudopodia meet one another on the opposite side to fuse. So we circle around the foreign body. This creates an enclosed chamber that contains phagocytized particle. Then chamber invaginate to the inside of cytoplasmic cavity and breaks away from the outer membrane to form free-floating phagocytic vesicle نسميها phagosome inside cytoplasm. Neutrophil able to phagocytize 3 to 20 bacteria before itself die. هذا الفيجر يوضح لنا attachment. هذه هي السيل النيوتروفيل ترتبط مع الفورين بودي تكون pseudobody meeting بعدين يصير بيها separation invagination separation to the cytoplasm يرتبط مع الليزوسوم release hydrolysis enzyme and destroy the foreign body. By macrophage macrophage are the end stage product of monocytes ما قلنا but its presence in the tissues. When activated by immune system, they are much more powerful phagocytes when compared with neutrophil, often capable for destroy 100 bacteria, who have ability to engulf much larger particles, even whole RBCs. يعني بسبب الsize of macrophage compared with the neutrophil, engulfing أيضا able to engulf the larger particle when compared with the particles that engulfed by neutrophil. Malaria parasite also ممكن يكون بيصير بيها phagocytized by macrophage. larger bacteria يعني sorry larger foreign bodies more يعني يكون أكبر من البكتيريا اللي غالبا البكتيريا يكون متخصصة لها النيوتروفيل. After digestion particle macrophage can extrude the residual products and often survive and function for many more months. تلاحظون هنا إمكانيتها إنه تبقى تسوي destroying الفورين body وتبقى لعدة أشهر بعد عملية الفاغوسيتوسيس بينما النيوتروفيل after a few phagocytized process راح يصير بيها destruction. Inside both type neutrophil and macrophage after phagocytotic lysosome immediately fuse with the vesicle and release digestive enzyme inside the vesicle. In addition to digestion, the ingested bacteria in phagosomes, neutrophil and macrophage contain bactericidal agents عوامل قاتلة للبكتيريا that kill most bacteria even when lysosomal enzyme fail to digest them. إذا مو فقط الليسوسوم enzymes of lysosome, also there is bactericidal agents. Much of the killing effects result from several powerful oxidizing agents اللي تشمل superoxide or hydrogen peroxide or hydroxyl ions. These agents or factors very powerful for killing the foreign body, any type of foreign body. Monocyte macrophage cell system are also called reticuloendothelial system. The total combination of monocyte mobile macrophage, fixed tissue macrophage, and few specialized endothelial cells, all these type called reticuloendothelial system. Almost all these cells originate from monocytes themselves. يعني أصلا منشأها كلهم هي المونوسايت. لهالسبب أحيانا it's called monocyte macrophage system. tissue macrophage in the skin and subcut tissue called histocytes. When infections begin to in subcutaneous tissue and local inflammation issue, local tissue macrophage can divide it and form still more macrophage. إذا راح يصير عندي development الcells itself and culling more than these tissue macrophage for the neural blood vessels نفس ما قلنا by chemotaxis وتحول التشو ماكروفاج تقضي على الفورن body لسبب infection in subcut tissues. Macrophage in lymph node. Bacteria can be absorbed directly through the capillary membrane into the blood, or particles not destroyed locally by the tissues, they enter to the lymph node and the lymph and flow to the lymph nodes located intermittently along the course of the lymph flow. يعني ممكن يصير بيها destroying الفورن body يصير بيها destroying directly in the blood vessels. أحيانا تدخل التشوز ومنها تنتقل للليمف نود خلال الليمف، فهناك بتصل الليمف نود راح first tissue macrophage presence in the inside lymph node. اوكي بالتالي راح تقوم بوظيفتها هي الفاجوسايتوسيس والتقضي على التعنت تكون بالساينسز of the lymph. من هنا يدخل blood أو الليمف يحاول على البكتيريا لو كان infection من خلال الافرنت lymphatics يدخل للساينسز تلاحظون. فهنا راح تتواجد عندي التشو ماكروفاج الليمف ماكروفاج وتؤدي وظيفتها هي destroying of the foreign body. بالنتيجة يخرج الليمف من الهيلاس أو efferent lymphatics to the blood يكون clear without any foreign body if the foreign body is able to destroy by this tissue macrophage. أحيانا يكون powerful فيستدعي activation of the immune system اللي هي يجي دور lymph cell T lymphocyte وال B lymphocyte. أيضا there is a macrophage in the liver sinusoids called Kaffer cell. Bacteria from ingested food واللي هو يكون very rich with bacteria pass to the GIT mucosa then reach to the portal blood. منها يدخل الليفر sinusoids راح بالليفر sinusoids راح تتواجد عندي الكفر سيلز اللي هي عبارة عن ماكروفاج تيشو ماكروفاج. أيضا راح تسوي عملية destroying للinvaders اللي هي البكتيريا و as possible clean the blood from these foreign bodies. The macrophage of the spleen والbone marrow same likelihood نفس الفكرة إنه يحاول يقضي عليها. كفر cell هي effective particle filtration system that almost none of the bacteria from GIT succeed in passing from the portal blood into the general system circulation. إذا هي عبارة عن barrier يعتبر للبكتيريا يمنعها prevent passing by destroying them and clean the blood from them. وصلنا للinflammation. Inflammation is dramatic secondary change resulting from releasing of injured tissue multiple substances caused by bacteria, trauma, chemicals, heat, or any type of change. Causes inflammation which characterized by vasodilatation of the blood vessels that lead to excessive local blood flow. أيضا characterized by increased permeability of the capillaries. This process allowing leakage large quantities of fluid into the interstitial spaces. Also, clotting of the fluid in the interstitial spaces because of excessive amount of fibrinogen and other proteins. leakage from capillaries يمنح انتشار الفورم body عملية clotting these capillaries characterized by migration of large number of white blood cells including granulocyte and monocyte and characterized by swelling of the inflamed tissues with painful also loss of function because the painful of the inflamed tissues. Tissue products that cause these reactions are histamine, bradykinin, serotonin, prostaglandin, reaction products of the complement system, reaction products of the blood clotting system, and lymphokines that are released by sensitized cells. These substances strongly activate the macrophage system, okay? And within a few hours, macrophages begin to devour, to destroy tissues. But at the same time, macrophages also further injure the still living tissue cells. من يكون عندي inflammation نقول acute inflammation أو severe inflammation التشو macrophage تقضي على الفورين body لكن بنفس الوقت طبعا activation يكون by these factors لكن بنفس الوقت هي ممكن تسبب لي injury لل living tissue of our bodies. راح نحكي أكثر باللكتشر القادم إن شاء الله عن هذا الموضوع more details. The intensity of the inflammatory process is usually proportional to the degree of tissue injury. أكيد كل ما يزيد عندي الانفلاميشن راح يصير كل ما يزيد عندي الانجري راح يزداد الانفلاميشن تناسب طردي فيكون direct proportion. The tissue spaces and lymphatics in the inflamed area are blocked by fibrinogen clots so that after a while fluid barely flows through the spaces. This swelling of process تكون very benefit delay the spreading of bacteria or toxic products to other types of the body. فعملية الكلوتينج هنا by blood proteins very very important نحاول يكون barrier prevent spreading of inflammation to other tissues. Macrophage and neutrophil responses during inflammation. أكيد إحنا قلنا أول خط دفاعي هي tissue macrophage والنيوتروفيل. It's also called the first line defense. After inflammation, what happened? First line هو tissue macrophage. Within minutes after inflammation begin, macrophage already present in the tissue. أصلا هي already present in the tissue. Whether histiocyte in the subcut or alveolar macrophage in the lung, macroglia in the brain, or any type of cell in the liver, any type immediately begin their phagocytic action, directly work their job. Second line neutrophil invasion of the inflamed area. بعد ما التشو macrophage attack the foreign body أكيد راح ترسل عند الكيموتكسس راح تحسس إلها النيوتروفيل موجودة blood vessels تكون close to this inflamed area راح يصير عندنا diabetes وتخرج within إذا عددها طبعا بس عندي neutrophilia mean increased number of neutrophil within a few hours after onset of the acute or severe inflammation راح يصير عندنا response the bone marrow to increase number of or releasing more number of the neutrophils حتى تساعد tissue macrophage in the destroying of the foreign body. Third line, second macrophage invasion into the inflamed tissue. Lean monocyte from blood enter to the inflamed tissue and enlarge to become macrophage. بعد ما تستجيب النيوتروفيل راح أيضا تستشعر المونوسايت الموجودة بالبلاد فيزلز وتخرج by diabetes to the tissues وهناك راح يصير بيه conformational يصير بيه development وتتحول إلى الماتشور form اللي هو الماكروفاج comes from blood. Fourth line, increased production of granulocytes and monocytes by bone marrow. بعدين يجيني الدعم supporting from bone marrow. هو خلال هذه الفترة اللي action of first line هي التشو ماكروفاج والنيوتروفيل والdevelopment of monocyte وماكروفاج. خلال الفترة البون مارو هو استشعر وجود الفورم بادي وبدأ بإنتاج أو maturation of الليوكوسايتس الموجودة أصلا بشكل خامل قلنا بالداخل البون مارو. يصير بيها maturation يصير بيها development differentiation وبالنتيجة راح يصير releasing to the blood vessels وصولا إلى tissue inflamed tissue. Inflammation, feedback control of the macrophage and neutrophil responses. Macrophage response to the inflammation controlled by factors تشمل tumor necrotic factor TNF, interleukin 1, granulocyte monocyte clone stimulation factor, granulocyte clone stimulating factor وmonocyte clone stimulating factor. These factors formed by activating macrophage cells in the inflamed tissue. The cause of increased production of granulocyte and monocyte by bone marrow, these factors mainly by GM CSF اللي هي خاصة بالgranulocyte monocyte وصلهم G الgranulocyte CSF والmonocyte CSF. بعد ما عندي inflammation التشو ماكروفاج الموجودة بالتشو بالinflamed tissue release these 5 factors, either release them directly to the blood then reach to the bone marrow ويصير عندنا response في bone marrow ويبدي بالproduction more and more leukocytes, or by indirect way releasing only TNF اللي هي tumor necrotic factors وinterleukin 1 to the endothelial cells, fibroblasts والlymphocytes, where these cells release the other 3 factors أيضا to the blood وصولا إلى البون مارو وهكذا. بالنتيجة راح يصير عندي production more and more granulocytes to help or assessment in inflammation process. Eosinophils, they are weak phagocytic and they are exhibit chemotaxis about 2%. إذا الفاجوسايتوسيس موجودة يعني able to phagocyte the foreign body لكن يكون الباور مالتها very weak. Often produced in large numbers in people with parasitic infection. إذا يستجيب للparasitic infection such as barkworm, they are attach themselves to the parasite by way of the special surface molecules in the mechanism خاصة and release substances able to kill these parasites. They do this by releasing hydrolytic enzyme from their granules. احنا قلنا eosinophil يكون red color الجرانيولز مالتها تكون acidic. These granules able to releasing hydrolytic enzyme which are modified lysosomes, releasing highly reactive form of oxygen يعتبر lethal to parasite, و releasing major basic protein from the granules also highly larvicidal polypeptide عبارة عن polypeptide لكن يكون قاتل لليرقات الباراسايت. Eosinophils also have special propensity to collect in tissues, have allergic reaction. In addition to parasites, have a role in allergic reactions, but in lesser extent when compared with the eosinophil. Sorry, basophil أنا جاي أحكي عنها. basophil تكون blue in color وليس أعتقد أنا الستايل انتقل eosinophil. Allergic reaction when compared with the basophil. asthma and allergic skin reaction. هذا أحد الالتهابات التحسسية اللي للإيزونوفيل يكون لها دور فعال في القضاء على allergic reaction. البازوفيل تكون blue in color الجرانيولز بالسيتوبلازم. The basophil doesn't have any role against a parasite, but it's active against an allergic reaction. More powerful leukocyte cells in this type of infection. The basophils in the circulating blood are similar to the large tissue mast cell. Okay, both of them, mast and basophil, mast cell and basophil, liberate heparin into the blood, substance that can prevent blood coagulation. حكينا عنه in lecture 1 of the blood in practical physiology. Mast cell and basophil also release histamine, bradykinin and serotonin. احنا عرفنا لهم دور في response of macrophage to the infection. Indeed, it's mainly the mast cell in inflamed tissue that are release substances during inflammation. The mast cell also and basophil play exceedingly role important some types of allergic reaction. احنا قلنا لها دور بالالرجيك رياكشن من خلال immunoglobulin E IgE type formation of this type of immunoglobulins has special propensity to become attached to the mast cell and basophils. And then eosinophil effect might one mainly against parasite with a little extent in the allergic reaction, while the basophil won the main role in allergic reaction with active in our role releasing of histamine, bradykinin, and serotonin, antiheparin with assessment of the mast cell which presents in the tissues. إلى هنا أعزائي الطلبة انتهي lecture 2. إلى اللقاء في lecture أخرى.